So good afternoon, all the attendants and audience. This session is the Young Investigator Workshop of APASL, APASL, and AASLD. This is the Room 6, C2. We have 3 distinguished speakers. So shall we start? Each speaker, I will remind all of you that you will present around 10 minutes, and we have a question and answer for 10 minutes. So I would like to start for the first speaker today, Dr. Shakir Muhammad Shahadat Hussain from Bangladesh. Please. No? Oh, then I see online. Not here yet. Okay, that if he not alive yet, I will move to the second one. The second one from China, Dr. Kiran Chang, please. So Dr. Kiran Chang will present to us with the topics of interferon reduced hepatocellular carcinoma risk in high-risk Asian patients with chronic hepatitis B. Dr. Chang, please.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a major honor to give this presentation here about our study. Our study is about the antiviral treatment in reducing the HCC risk in high-risk Asian patients with chronic hepatitis B. And the objectives of our study is that we would like to indicate that does interferon administration have extra benefit on the background that the nucleotide already reduced the HCC incidence to a relatively low level. Because on the background, we know that nucleotide can reduce HCC incidence to a relatively low level, and interferon therapy seems superior in the surface antigen reduction and HCC prevention than the nucleotide. So so what about the extra benefit the interferon can take? We would like to investigate that. So about the method is that the analysis was conducted in the data from a multi-center prospective real-world study, AASLD project from China, which started recruiting from October 2020. And the data on those patients who have completed 48 weeks of treatment and uploaded complete laboratory testing were analyzed in this study. And each patient was evaluated by the algorithms that have been proven of good performance in Asian patients, including AMAP score, modified PHB score, and the Toronto HCC risk index if they have the cirrhosis. Each patient was evaluated by the 3 score or 2 score, and the highest risk level was taken at the patient's HCC risk level. And in our study, we take 12,172 patients in the interferon group and 5,622 patients in the nucleotide group. And here is their population characteristics. And at baseline, we can see that the E antigen, the positive E antigen status, and the HDV and the and the surface antigen levels are significantly different in the 2 groups. So the in the following statistics, we did some statistic method to adjust the different and balance the difference in the following analysis. And first, we took a glance at the HCC risk category change. So in the our patients who have paired HCC risk score, that is 5,000 in the interferon group and about 1,500 patients in the nucleotide group. We can see that when at the base, in those patients with high risk HCC risk category at the baseline, after 1 year of treatment of nucleotide, either nucleotide or interferon, they can have about 15% of them retrograde to the intermediate risk. And this is not statistically different in between the two groups. Then we take a look into each category, the HCC incidence in each category, and we found that first in the low and intermediate risk group, the treatment of nucleotide and the interferon, they have the same. They have similar result in the HCC risk reduction, because the HCC the 48-week cumulation HCC incidence was not significantly different in the low risk group and the intermediate risk group. That is 0.4 in the interferon group and 0.7 in the nucleotide group in the low risk group, and about 0.1% in the interferon group and 0.2% in the nucleotide group in the intermediate risk group. However, in the patients with high risk, high HCC risk at baseline, the effect of interferon therapy and the nucleotide therapy is significantly different. The cumulative 84-week HCC incidence was about 0.4% in the interferon group, but it is 1% and 1.4% in the nucleotide group, and the difference is significant. So our conclusion is that antiviral treatment can reduce HCC risk in high risk CHB patients. They can reduce the HCC risk to a similarly low level, but the interferon might bring extra benefit in the high risk patients because they can make significantly more significant reduction in this group. And that's all. And we acknowledgement the OASIS project and our and the Chinese Foundation for the Hepatitis Prevention and Control. And thank you, professors. And I hope I'm looking forward to the comments and the suggestions.
Thank you, Dr. Shang. So it's open for discussion or questions. So before moving that, can you clarify or elaborate more details about the two arms between interferon and nucleoside analog? For interferon group, how long does it take for each one in this trial? How long that you use to treatment for hepatitis B?
For 48
for 48 weeks.
Yeah.
And for nucleoside analog, which kind of antiviral agent that you use in this enroll cases?
You mean interferon?
Yeah, no. I mean nucleoside analog.
Nucleotide, we didn't categorize it. It included the anti-caviar, tenofovir, and TAF.
So mix up.
Yeah, mixed up.
Okay. So any questions or any topic to
May
discuss?
I ask one question?
Yeah, please.
I'm Dr. Nam from Japan. I'm participating online. And thank you for your beautiful presentation, Chen. And I would like to ask you about the treatment after the 40 weeks of the interferon or nucleoside analog treatment. You showed that the cumulative HCC risk incidence is markedly different between interferon group and the Kenya group. But what kind of treatment did you deliver to this patient after 40 weeks of the interferon or nucleoside analog treatment? You may just observe the patient, or you may deliver some kind of antiviral treatment after 40 weeks of the trial period.
Professor, you mean either all the patients treatment naive when they're included in this
Of
analysis?
course, these patients are naive, but after the 40 weeks of trial, 48 weeks of trial period, did you treat any kind of treatment with these patients?
Yeah, they continued, all of the patients continued nucleotide treatment after this trial.
Okay. So
And
the beginning of the treatment period, you delivered interferon or nucleoside analog, and after the trial period, you delivered all of the patients to the nucleoside analog. So
Okay, thank you for your question. Professor Kim?
yeah, you mean your lectures about how to.
Yeah, not just mine, but everybody's.
Yeah.
So the question is this interferon or is it the patient? Meaning, if this was a randomized trial, we will not have concerns that the two groups of patients are different somehow.
Yes.
But this was not a randomized trial. Somehow, patients were selected to receive interferon. It was not random,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So what's different about them? And can that be the explanation that they were experiencing lower instance of HCC? That's the big question. If you submit this paper, that's the question that reviewers will ask, right?
Yes.
So in the general comparison, it didn't look too different, but I was curious that surface antigen titers seem to be lower
Yes.
in individuals who received interferon that may have some bearing on HCC risk. Another scenario that I could think of is that patients who received interferon somehow were on nucleotide treatment for a long time, and the doctor didn't feel that they didn't respond satisfactorily, so they added interferon. So if that's the case, that interferon patients may have received the treatment longer, that may be the difference between the two groups. So it's up to you to prove that it is the interferon, not the patient. So you will need to really provide all the data you can generate that the two groups are comparable. And one of the ways to do that is propensity score matching.
Yeah.
So those are my thoughts. I'm sure you have thought about those too, right?
Yeah, thank you very much, Professor. Yes, we're also concerned about that because the characteristics of the patients who receive the interferon therapy is too different because of the clinical practice or our doctors prompt to use interferon in those with lower antigen and surface antigen levels and better status for the safety concerns. And we also see the baseline characteristics have significant differences in two groups, and so we did use some statistical method, included the PPS the score, but the PPS score, I think because the patient group is not large enough, maybe, or too different, it had after the PPS, we can only have about half of patients in this group. So we stratified the patients with S antigen level and use the logistic regression to and try to balance the effect by the different baseline characteristics, but I think we still need improvement in that part. After I hope the patient, because this study patients are still in follow up, and some about half of the patients haven't get to the 48 weeks of the time point. So we hope that when this study complete, we can have enough data to do more perfect statistical method to balance the bias.
Okay, continue. Just Professor Lê Kim mentioned about its effect on interferon on the patient size. If it is the interferon effect, how you explain the extra benefit of interferon to reduce the SCC risk in high risk group? How you explain that? Why
Interferon can lower the patients in the already in the high risk group. Why interferon can lower that? I think the if we want to give it an explanation, it's about how interferon reduce the cccDNA pool and the integrated HBV DNA pool. I think that can explain that. But before we get into that, I think we still need to focus on the patient, how to balance the bias and reduce the bias.
Okay. Any other questions from the audience? Okay, I think if not, thank you so much, Dr. Chang, for a nice presentation.
Thank you.
So I think we move on to the second speaker, Dr. Apichat Gaudet from NKC Thailand. The topic will be performance of AMAP FIB4 APRI for predicting F2 fibrosis in chronic hepatitis B patient. Dr. Apichat, please.
Thank you, Professor Sumbat, for kind introduction. I'm Dr. Apichat Gaudet. Good afternoon. I would like to present the research title on behalf of the co-authors, Performance of AMAP FIB4 and FP for predicting F2 fibrosis in patients with chronic hepatitis B infection. I have nothing to disclose. As you know, WHO goal to eliminate the viral hepatitis B, including viral hepatitis C, within 20 and 30. They try to reduce the new case by 90% and to reduce the mortality to 65 in 20 and 30. However, the main challenging is the diagnosis case, and the treatment paradigm is too difficult to provide with other non-specialists. As you see in this slide shows the HBV treatment indication across all the liver society. As you see in patients with chronic hepatitis B cirrhosis with detectable DNA is indicated to viral treatment. However, in patients without cirrhosis, particularly in patients with persistent normal LT and significant have the DNA elevation greater than 2,000 IU per milliliter, should be required about the moderate fibrosis from the liver biopsy, or let's say the fibroscan, as many liver societies suggest. However, the fibroscan is a high-cost device not available in all provinces, particularly in all all center in Thailand. And the applicability rate of the FibroScan is maybe lower than the blood spade. Another gold standard is the liver biopsy. As you know, the liver biopsy needs the experiences and has the concern complication, including death, but have the few cases report about the death. Recently, 2 years ago, the AMAP score will consist of the age 6, the simple lab albumin, tryptophan, and platelet consist of the new formula of the score that we call AMAP score. Originally, AMAP score is developed for ACC prediction and are now general validated in other population, and they categorize the patient in 3 risks. The low risk score is less than 50. Moderate risk is score between 50 and 60. And the patient who have the higher score greater than 60 may be categorized as the high risk group. And last year, the AMAP score has proposed to, this score can predict the fibrosis severity, let's say in patient with advanced F3 fibrosis or patient with cirrhosis or F4 fibrosis. However, there has been no study to evaluate AMAP score to predict the patient with significant fibrosis or F2 fibrosis in patient with hepatitis B infection. Therefore, our study was to validate the performance and diagnostic accuracy in predicting F2 fibrosis in patients with hepatitis B infection. And second objective was to compare the performance between the AMAP score and the existing score, let's say the FIFO and EPRI score in predicting the significant fibrosis in those patients. This slide shows the conceptual framework of the study. The patient with chronic hepatitis infection, and then we calculate the AMAP score that consider the only simple parameters such as the age, sex, albumin, tryptophan, and platelet, and we validate with the F2 fibrosis from the FibroScan result, and then we compare with the FIFO and EPRI score. Our research is a cross-sectional study, just only conduct the trial at Songkhla Nakarin Hospital located in the south part of Thailand. This study is capture the patient who had their FibroScan results between 2014 to 2022. This slide shows the inclusion criteria of the patient. Let's say in brief, the patient who have adult greater than 18 years, diagnosed with chronic hepatitis B and had their FibroScan results. The exclusion criteria were shown at the slide. The exclusion criteria has the patient had no labs to calculate the AMAP score within 3 months at the time of the FibroScan date, and diagnosis with co-infection with other viral hepatitis or HIV infection, or other diagnosis rather than only the hepatitis B infection, and the patient who had the interference of the FibroScan results, such as who have ascites, who have cholestasis, or who have active hepatitis. And the unreliable FibroScan result we excluded from our study. This slide shows the statistical analysis. We use the R program and variable categorized as a quantitative variable that is the laboratory parameter FIFO and EPRI we represent with mean or median as appropriated. And we will compare this data with CDT test or Whitney test, and the categorical data such as sex, HBe antigen, diabetes, comorbidity, the FibroScan cutoff, we will present with a number and percentage. This slide shows the formula of the AMAP score, FIFO, and EPRI score. We also evaluate the performance of the AMAP score accessed by the AULC curve and compare with the Lilong test. And about to compare to other score, we try to evaluate the diagnostic accuracy with the given cutoff use sensitivity, specificity, PPV, and NPV. And we use the cutoff of the FibroScan greater than 7 that is validated in the Thai population compared with the liver biopsy from the previous study. Let's see the result. A total of 1,500 patients who have the FibroScan result. We exclude a total of over 700. And finally, we have a total number of the patients that eligible to our study is 793 patients. Let's see the characteristic between the patient who have significant fibrosis and non-significant fibrosis this slide. The patient who have the significant fibrosis have the higher proportion of the male sex, 61% compared with 47%. And other lab parameter in patients who have the significant fibrosis have the higher level of those liver function parameter. This slide shows the median score of the AMAP score. As you see in the patient with significant fibrosis have the higher AMAP score, higher FIB-4, EPRI, and higher FibroScan. Let's see the performance of the score to predict the F2 fibrosis. As you see, the AMAP score has the lowest AULC compared with the FIB-4 EPRI score by numerically, but not statistical significant difference. The highest AULC score is EPRI score. But however, when compared with AMAP score, it is not statistical significant difference. This slide shows the AULC of the F3 fibrosis. As you see, the highest AULC to predict the F3 fibrosis is EPRI score. AMAP score has the lowest AURLC. However, when compared with the EPRI and AMAP, the AMAP has a significant lower AULC than the EPRI score. For the F4 fibrosis, the same as the F2 fibrosis, the AMAP score has the lowest AURLC compared with the FIB-4 and EPRI score, but no statistical significant difference. And we try to generate the new cutoff because of the original cutoff of the AMAP score that try to certify the 3 strata of the patient has the lower sensitivity to predict the F2 fibrosis. Let's say in the patient who have the score 50, the sensitivity to detect the F2 fibrosis is just only 59%. We try to generate the new cutoff according to the high sensitivity and high specificity. The lower cutoff point is 40 to provide the highest sensitivity to 92%. And the cutoff of 55 generate the high specificity of 88%. Therefore, in our study that we try to generate the new cutoff point of AMAP score to predict the F2 fibrosis. Let's talk about the discussion of our study. Our study is the first to validate AMAP score in predicting F2 fibrosis, as well as F3 and F4 fibrosis in patients with hepatitis B. However, the AMAP score exhibit the lower performance compared with the FIB-4 and EPRI score in predicting fibrosis, except for the statistical significant difference. The higher prediction rate, performance rate is occur in EPRI score to predict the F3 fibrosis. However, it's different from the original study that showed that the AMAP score has the higher AULC when compared with the FIB-4 and EPRI score. And our study generated the new cutoff with the lower cutoff is 40 and the higher cutoff is 55, provide the highest sensitivity and highest specificity respectively in predicting significant fibrosis. However, we have many limitations because our study is just only single study and that have the limited sample size, and we don't have the liver biopsy proven that we believe that this is the gold standard to determine the fibrosis of the patient. Conclusion, MF score maybe can provide the clinical utility in predicting significant fibrosis. However, in our study is not show that the same AULC than the original study that I mentioned earlier. However, we try to maybe to generate the new cutoff. And I think further validation study should conduct to screen more sample size of the patient and for the generalizability and confirm about the performance of the MF score to predict fibrosis. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Pishat. So it's time to discussion. Any questions or any comment from the floor? May I start with the first one? Can you elaborate a little bit? Because this is a wide range of data inclusion, right, from 2014, right, that you
Yes.
mentioned to 2020 something.
Yes.
So you use the basic lab at the time point nearby the fibroscan done, or
Yes.
how long does it take?
Within 3 months.
Within 3 months.
We postulate that if we use the time limit to the treatment, maybe is can the same time between the fibroscan date and the lab results. I think it's not too much different of the change of the lab.
So I think it's not in your study or objective, but it means that for the first few cases that are enrolled since 2014 until now, you have some number of cases with hepatitis B and SCC occurrence, right? How many cases of SCC in this data set?
I'm not sure about the exact number, but because our study is just collect, just capture the cross-sectional study that the patient will have their AMAP AMAP score valued and it's the same time within the 3 months with fibroscan date.
Yeah.
Because I have another study with the SCC, but I'm not sure about the exactly number.
Yeah, I
I'm
understand
sorry.
that this is because of the cross-sectional study,
Yes.
but some studies show that if you prospective cohort, right, do the prospective cohort for the dose with high AMAP, it can be one of the tools to predict SCC reason in this group of patients.
I think maybe I would recognize it's about just only maybe 7% of my cohort that have the SCC or a patient with chronic hepatitis B.
Okay,
Maybe 7%.
Thank you. Any questions or any comment from the floor?
May I ask one question?
Yeah, please.
Thank you for your beautiful presentation. I think that such kind of testing, it is important to finding the patient with a significant fibrosis that is sensitive and not specificity. So, which test is the most one for finding the significant fibrosis? The most useful test for finding the F2 or more fibrosis.
Which one from your study, which NIT test that can predicting F2 fibrosis?
I think for my study that compared in not gold standard lead from the fibroscan, because the p-value not significant and where the number is not significant different, I think for me, I think you should use the most validated score just as FIB-4 and FP score rather than the AMAP, because the AMAP just recently have the original paper that published last year, and my study is just only I think up to now maybe just only one study that evaluate the performance, maybe external validation of the AMAP score to predict fibrosis, just only one. I think from the number of the percent of the performance And about the p-value, I think it's not significant different. I should use the most widely validated scores that I fit for a pre-score now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any comment from Professor Lê Kim?
Are you surprised
No.
with the fact that the AMAP score didn't perform as well as APRI?
I'm not surprised about the performance because many factors that contain the same at the APRI score, such as AST and platelet count of the patient, just only add the age and female sex to correlate to the AMAP score.
But the albumin and bilirubin don't change until you have hepatic decompensation. Right, they are late variables, and if you're looking for F2, most people with F2 will have normal albumin and bilirubin. So you've just basically wasted 2 variables for that population. I mean, that's what's shown when you were showing F2 versus F3 versus F4. As the stage goes up, AMAP score catches up with the other 2 variables, because now the 2 variables, the albumin and bilirubin, are kicking in to contribute to the score. Whereas if you're just looking for F2, bilirubin is basically useless.
Yeah.
But so I'm not too surprised, but I'm not trying to sound smart. For the audience, the AUROC curve is called discrimination, right? So it measures the model's ability to say that if you have an AMAP score that is higher, then that person has a higher fibrosis or higher risk of HCC in the original sense. But in this context, AMAP, higher AMAP, if there are 2 people, one has higher AMAP and the other has a lower AMAP, the AUROC tells us that the person with a higher score is more likely to have more advanced fibrosis than with lower score. So it measures whether you can rank people correctly. It doesn't measure whether AMAP score of 40 is predictive of F2 at what percent of the time. That's called calibration. So for practical purpose, what we want is a score that says if you're above this score, you go on to hepatitis B treatment, right? That's
Yes.
what you want to try to do.
Yes.
And that means each score has a probability associated with significant fibrosis. So that is the part of analysis that needs to be done. Rather than comparing area under the curve, at what percent, what score do you have enough positive predictive value to initiate anti-hepatitis B treatment, right?
Yes.
So I think that forgive me, the question that was asked, you want to be able to say, if you have a score greater than 70, right? Just hypothetically, then you will have relatively low false negative, right? If you set the score high, then everybody above the score probably has fibrosis that need to treatment. Then the downside is you'll be missing a number of people who have fibrosis but happen to have low score. That is not good. right? But in the other hand, if you set the score too low, then your positive predictive value will not be high, but your negative predictive value will be high. So you will end up treating a number of patients when they don't have liver fibrosis. So this is not a statistical question. It's policy question or practice question. What is your error tolerance, right? So I am okay treating extra few patients so I don't miss anybody who's really at risk, or I am so resource constrained that it is very difficult to justify patients who don't have fibrosis. And it will be okay if we missed a few people that have fibrosis but happen to have low score. They weren't going to be treated anyway. By having this criteria, we are identifying more people who are at risk. So I think you may want to have an a priori set where you want to draw the line. That is more practically important information than the AUROC comparison. And if you're looking for that, then the model performance may be different. But I still think AMAP is not a good use for this. But you have a different perspective how the model performs by thinking like that.
Yeah.
I'm sure you thought about it.
Thank you, Professor Lei. Thank you, Dr. Pichard. So I think we move back to the first presentation that I just missed. I will recall again, Dr. Shakir Muhammad Shahadat Hussain from Bangladesh. You still here or not? No. No. So I think we have just only two presenters here. So thank you for attention to our speaker today. Thank you very much. I will close this session. Thank you.
そうですね。先ほどの日本の方もいらっしゃいましたし、最後の方今入りました。飛んでます。モデレーターってね、古代との方も、あれですね。今最後の方。それは何のために必要なの？個人的に必要なんですか？いや、それは個人的だから私はできないんですけど、経験があるかもわからない。議題として。まあ、定期的に相談していただければ。
そうかそうか。だからそこがメガネで抜くやつであれば。
力の姿だったらダメですよね。個人的に持ってないとね、言えるんで。直で来たら対応せざるを得ない。かも。
その50組が入れ替わり立ち替わり評価して発表するっていういい資料の記者資料を担当してたんですけど、
でかいんですよ。
いや、サイズなんてあれじゃないですか。色がフォローしてます。
色が合わなかった。
カラースペースがそう設定してもらったら変わらない。
何番目の方ですか？はい。データで当たってるんですか？セカンドね。ずっと置いてあったから。
例えば、ルームキーを拾って、
うまい歩いてる人がいこうか拾いましたよ。modify? Okay, over. 代理副会長ですが、14時、14時30分からお話になるレック先生が現場で中止される人が
So we have 1 hour for 3 presentations, right? And you go first.
Okay.
And then I introduce this one.
Okay.
And then back to you again.
Okay.
I will be here with you.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. Oh, I see.
So when you're done, issues on the
Sure. We have a judge. Good. Yeah, yeah, I know. Yeah. We also need to score them. We also need to score.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, to give the scores.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's what I mean.
Yeah. I think this was not done like regularly, right? For presentations? Do we? Posters. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. So let's start the next session, viral hepatitis in young investigator workshop. I and Professor Nin will chair this session. So the first speaker is Dr. Qian Zhu from China. So please start.
Thank you very much, Professor Ninqing and Professor Otsuka, for your kind introduction. It's a great honor for me to be here in Kyoto to attend the Young Investigators Workshop. Today, I would like to provide some findings about the protective of nuclear analogs against the severe COVID-19. I think it would be best to start off my talk by raising a question, that is whether nuclear analogs could reduce the risk of severe COVID-19 among patients with chronic liver disease. So why we raise this question? According to our clinical practice during Omicron wave, it seems that patients with daily NA treatment suffered mild symptoms after Omicron infection. So we were interested in this question and investigated the literatures. Previous studies have found that HIV positive patients on TDF and intractibine have a lower risk of COVID-19 and hospitalization than those giving other treatments. So some organizations conducted different cohorts, reported that patients treated with TDF for HIV were less likely to develop SARS-CoV-2 infection and severe COVID-19. But limited literatures reported this protective effect of NAs in this population of chronic liver disease. So we are focus on this question, whether NAs could reduce the risk of severe COVID-19 in patients with chronic liver disease. First, we concluded, we included 579 patients with CLD with available data of SARS-CoV-2 infection during Omicron wave. And secondly, we collected demographic and clinical data by standardized questionnaires and electronic medical records. And finally, we use multivariate logistic regression models to assess the association between NAs and COVID-19 outcomes. And this is the flowchart of patients' enrollment. Firstly, we perform a monofactor analysis between NA treatment group and non-NA treatment group. Here we have five outcomes of severity of COVID-19. They are severe COVID-19, ICU admission, mechanical ventilation, COVID-19 related deaths, and overall deaths. And we found that there's a significantly lower proportion of severe COVID-19 and the COVID-19 related deaths in the NA treatment group. The SU admission, mechanical ventilation, and overall deaths have the similar trends. And then we adjusted some well-known confounding factors, including liver disease stage, age, sex, and vaccine, and comorbidity to further assess the association between to assess the protective effect of NA against the severe COVID-19, and we found the daily NA use is an independent protective factor of severe COVID-19 and related deaths for patients with COD. So we enter into the more details of this question and try to figure out the contribution of anticaver or tenofovir in this protective effect. And we found tenofovir reduced the risk of severe COVID-19 and related deaths to some degree for patients with chronic liver disease, even though there's no significant difference of the p-value. And the anticaver significantly reduce risk of severe COVID-19 and related deaths for patients with COD by the similar multivariate logistic regression models. So I would like to sum up the results of this investigation. And daily NA therapy reduces severity of COVID-19 among COD patients. This finding supported that NA might be used as an early treatment of COVID-19, especially for those COD patients with for which hepatic safety concerns arise with other antiviral drugs. And we are suspected the further the mechanism is immunomodulatory effects or interference with SARS-CoV-2 replication. Actually, in our another study about humoral immunity following Omicron infection, we didn't find a significant immunomodulatory effect of NA on the natural antibody response or B cell response to Omicron. They play a protective effect mainly by inhibiting virus replication. But unfortunately, we fail to collect the cycles ratio of RT-PCR data of these patients during Omicron infection. So better design of experiments should be considered in the future research. That's all of my talk today. Thank you for your listening and welcome questions and advices.
Thank you, Dr. Zhu, for your nice, interesting presentation. So, are there any questions or comments from audience?
Well, if not, maybe I start. Yeah, so very nice presentation and interesting data. So this is one single center study.
Yes.
Yes. And this is the last wave of pandemic of COVID, right?
Yeah.
So you are studying about BA.5.
Yes.
Have you had any analysis for previous strains such as the wild type or earlier strains on the impact of of the disease severity with or without NAs in these patients?
No, we didn't collect the related data.
Okay, so Yeah, we have 10 minutes
Yeah, so
for discussion.
it's
so we
hard
have-
to spend 10 minutes. Yeah, as you suggested, I'm also interested in the mechanisms. So, is there any possibility that NA directly inhibit COVID-19 virus?
I beg your pardon?
Sorry, is there any possibility that NA directly interfere the COVID-19 replication, viral replication?
Yeah, maybe it plays play a role play an important role in the replication of SARS-CoV-2. I tend to believe that.
Okay. Yeah, and I think NA improves the liver function. That the reason why COVID-19, that's the reason why NA is protective against COVID-19. That's in my opinion. But is there any possibility like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, we think that NA is have immunomodulatory effect, but in our humoral immunity analysis, we found that NA didn't have the significant immunomodulatory effect on the neutralizing antibody response and B cell response to Omicron. So we tend to believe that that's interference of the SARS-CoV virus replication.
Okay. Yeah.
Professor Kim may want to comment.
Please.
Morning session, correct? You were in the morning session earlier today?
Yeah.
Yes. So we're talking about causality. Hep B treatment cause better outcome of COVID infection
Yes.
effect.
Yes.
The strongest trial study design would be randomized trial, right? In a COVID patient, you randomize them to receive tenofovir versus placebo and see if they develop severe COVID or die or not. That would be the strongest design
Yes.
to prove the
yes.
hypothesis.
Yes.
We're not doing that,
Yeah.
right? So in order to get close to the causality, you need to make sure that the baseline characteristics of those received entecavir, tenofovir is very similar to those who did not receive the medication. Right? I didn't see a lot of information about the difference between the two groups in your presentation. So people who didn't receive the medications, were they hepatitis B patients?
Actually,
Sorry, I must have missed that.
I think maybe the characteristics of all the patients. In this all patients and 51.8% patients with hepatitis B. This is the etiology.
So did all hepatitis B patients receive nucleic acid analogs?
No.
So you're talking about a subgroup of hepatitis B who received the treatment versus everybody else who did not receive it, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's risky. You want to try to make the two groups as comparable as you can.
Okay.
So, right off the bat, if you're comparing Hep B patients who are receiving antiviral treatment versus not, there are two different groups of people who may have two different immune response to a viral infection, things like that. That will go against the hypothesis that you're trying to prove. But the point is, these two groups are not very comparable. And you need to do.
So I should have do a PSM analysis and at one. Okay, I got it.
If you have enough patients with hepatitis B,
Yeah.
then I would restrict the analysis to hepatitis B patients who received antiviral versus not. That is cleaner. Because if you throw in everybody else, the group's so heterogeneous, they are not, you don't know what you're comparing. So I would explore multiple different groups and look for those explanations first before going into the lab and trying to spend money and prove that there's an immunologic basis or virological basis. That's my reaction.
So I need a validation cohort.
I would pick a group that is comparable to those who received antiviral versus not.
Okay.
So that would be my advice. One thing that I was thinking is that if this is all hepatitis B patients, and Hep B patients received antiviral treatment did better, were they just healthier patients? Were they in care? Were they getting more medical attention compared to people who had hepatitis B who did not receive medication? They may be more poor. They have more comorbidity. They have other factors that made them unhealthy that led them to suffer the consequences of COVID-19. So without all of that information, it's hard to say that there is causality between antiviral treatment and the outcome of COVID infection.
So too much confounding factors.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much.
You can deal with that. I'm trying to give you ideas to make this data publishable.
Thank you.
Yeah, very constructive comments. Thank you very much. So we are running short of time. So thank you, Dr. Zhu.
So may we move on to next presenter, Dr. Rex Hui Wang Hing from China. And yeah, please, you have 10 minutes presentation. Okay.
Okay, so hello. Hello, chairs, and hello, Professor Kim. Hello, all. So I'm Rex from the University of Hong Kong, and delighted to be here to present this study on DNA integration in HBV. And I'll focus a bit more on the implications of our results for antiviral treatment. So first, what do we know about DNA integrations? So we know that integration is a universal event that occurs shortly after the occurrence of the infection. It occurs due to intrahepatic viral replication, but the integrated DNA itself is replication deficient. So it can produce some viral proteins like HBsAg or HBx from the host mechanisms, but itself it's replication deficient. But more importantly, we know that DNA integration is a driver of hepatocarcinogenesis, and it's also possible to reduce integrations by nucleoside analog treatment. So on the other hand, what do we not know? So the integration profiles in different phases of HBV infection has not been very well defined. In particular, among patients between E positive or E negative phases, or patients with chronic infection versus hepatitis, is not very clear. And more importantly, we don't really know the integration profiles in patients who are HBsAg negative. So accordingly, we performed a study to provide a detailed profiling of HBV DNA integrations across the whole disease spectrum. So we had 55 patients with liver biopsies from different phases of infection, including E positive infection, E positive hepatitis, E negative infection and hepatitis. And finally, we had 20 patients who were S negative. So 10 patients were Hep B patients with documented S seroclearance. And we also had 10 patients with occult Hep B. So they had no known history of hepatitis B. They were HBsAg negative, but they had detectable serum or intrahepatic DNA. So for the methodology, we used the target capture NGS technique to try to characterize the DNA integrations. So the advantage of NGS is that it's a very sensitive measure, and it's much better and more sensitive and more efficient than the older methods of PCR-based techniques for integration. So we also use the virus clip tool, which is an in-house developed bioinformatics tool for characterization of HPV integrations. So first, we documented DNA integrations in all our patients who were S positive, and we documented it in 80% of S seroclearance patients and 70% of occult Hep B patients. So overall, the number of integrations range from 6.8 to 10.8 log integrations per liver in our group. And when we compare different phases, we can see that there's a stepwise decrease when we compare the integration frequencies in the E positive group to the E negative and then to the S negative group. But when we looked at the smaller subgroups, we saw that infection versus hepatitis actually had no significant impact on the integration frequencies. And also between patients with S loss versus occult Hep B, they also had no significant differences in integration frequencies. So aside from the direct comparison of integration frequencies, we looked at the genome breakpoints of Hep B. So from the chart, we can see that the integration breakpoints are actually distributed across the whole genome, the whole Hep B genome. But the most common breakpoint occurred around nucleotide 1800. So this is a known event that has been well reported because nucleotide 1800 is around the area of some direct repeat sequences. But more importantly, this breakpoint is associated with the production of C-terminal truncated HBX, which is a common mutant in HCC. And then these diagrams are looking at the human genome breakpoints. So in the circle plot, each bar represents one chromosome, and then each black line represents one integration to that chromosome. So when we look at all breakpoints, we can see that the E positive group is very busy because there are a lot of integrations and it appears to be distributed across all different chromosomes. But when we focus on the top 50 recurring genes, we can see we can delineate some of its distribution. For example, in E positive, it's predominantly grouped in chromosome 13, whereas in E negative and S negative phases, a lot of the integrations are in chromosomes 1, 2, and 5. So we focus on the genes that are affected in the human genome. And intriguingly, we see that the top gene affected in all groups were the same. So the gene is LINK-00486. LINK-00486 is a long intergenic non-coding RNA gene. It was the most commonly affected gene in all disease phases in our cohort. And more importantly, it's a frequently reported passenger mutation in HPV-related HCC. When we look at the other common genes in different phases, we can see that a lot of these commonly affected genes were related to HCC. So finally, we looked at how some of the viral markers correlated with DNA integration frequencies. So we can see that the integration frequency actually correlated well with intrahepatic DNA, cccDNA, core, QHBsAg, and also serum DNA. But when we looked at it in multivariate analysis, only QHBsAg in the serum was significantly and independently predictive of DNA integration frequencies. And that is predictable because we know that DNA integrations can produce HBsAg. So what do the results tell us? So first, we know that integration frequencies decreases as HPV progresses from E positive to E negative to S negative. But we know that infectional hepatitis does not impact on the integration frequency. And finally, integrations associated with HCC, regardless of whether it's in the human genome or in the viral genome, are commonly found. So a lot of these HCC-associated mutations are seen in all disease phases. So what are the implications of this? First, we know that the current disease phases of E positive or the infection or hepatitis states, they're not very sensitive indicators of the HBV pathogenesis. But on the other hand, we can argue that HBV integrations are associated with viral markers, it's associated with HCC. So integration is a very clinically relevant biomarker. And the other argument would be whether we can use it to guide our treatment indications, our thoughts on treatment indications. So there's increasing data to support the expansion of treatment indications or treating patients in indeterminate phases or gray zone, because we know that if we expand treatment indications, it can improve their outcomes. So some of the old treatment indications will be updated soon, but what we're thinking is whether we can use our integration data to actually enhance our understanding on who needs or does not need treatment. And I think this is the most important slide in my presentation. So first, given that nuke therapy reduces integrations, should we use these integration profiles to guide our treatment indications and guide our usual practice? So E positive patients, they are the group with the highest number of integrations, and they're the group with the highest number of integrations that are potentially hepatocarcinogenic. So in this way, should we treat them all with an aim to reduce integrations? Second point is, we know that there are no differences in integration frequencies between infection and hepatitis patients. So ALT itself should not be a determinant of treatment candidacy, and we should probably treat all patients regardless of infection or hepatitis states. And finally, in patients who are S negative, usually these patients, we won't start our therapy, and in many guidelines, it's safe to stop the therapy if we've confirmed the seroclearance. But these patients still have potentially harmful integrations. So should we continue our nukes to suppress the residual DNA replication to reduce further integrations? And I think these are some of the points that I think our data brings out. So I added a fourth summary point. I think from the integration data, we see that there are no quiescent disease phases, and HBV treatment indications should be expanded. So with this, I would like to close my talk. I would like to thank my mentors, Professor Yoon, Professor Sito, and my group. And I welcome any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rex, for this very decent presentation. Now, I think the audience question. Yeah, please.
Thank you. I'm Shangshu Huang from Taipei, Taiwan. Congratulations on your excellent study. I have two questions. The first one is, what's the possible mechanism or explanation for the stepwise decrease in chronic hepatitis B disease stage? Because we know integration should be long-term integration. Why? What's the possible mechanisms? And the second question is like, do you find any correlation between the number of integration and clinical features, such as fibrotic stage or presence of cirrhosis? Do they have any correlation?
Okay, yes. Thank you very much, Shangshin, for the question. So first question is, I'll answer the second one first. So whether there were any correlations with clinical features. So we did look at the Ishak fibrosis score, and we actually did see an association of higher integration frequencies in patients with significant fibrosis, but it became non-significant in multivariate analysis. So I didn't include that there. And your first question was on why it decreases.
Mechanism.
Yes. So basically, integrations occur because of the active viral replication. So a lot of the intermediates would integrate into the DNA. So as we progress through the stages, the integration would decrease because the novel integrations would decrease because you're having less and less viral replication activity. But at the same time, you're expecting some natural cell turnover from the hepatocytes. So that's why you have less and less. So I think that would explain our data.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
But I think I just want to add one more point. I think this is a great question because previous studies actually has evidenced there is more integration, during the later stage, even, for those cirrhotic patients. However, in yours, this is probably not the case. I think you probably need more sample size to make a conclusive, statement for this point. Yeah,
Yes.
that's my impression.
Yes.
Yeah, but anyway, this is a very well organized study already. Yeah, please move on.
Yeah, a very nice talk. This is Chunfeng from Gilead. I have two questions. One is related to the treatment to reduce the integrated DNA. We know that integrated DNA is very hard to remove. And from the data, we saw that the nuke could only reduce the integrated DNA by kind of no more than 1 log, right? And in your mind, what's the best choice or the treatment to reduce the integrated DNA, like the sRNA or the CRISPR or whatever the treatment? What's the suggestions? Second point, in your last point, you mentioned that after the S loss, missed the point. You suggest or did not suggest use the nuke to maintain the low level of the integrated DNA. What's the reason?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question. So, first question is, I think I agree. Like nukes, we know that it reduces integrations, but does not do it very well. But that's the best that we have at this moment. And obviously, there are a lot of studies ongoing, but some very early phases or preclinical studies in CRISPR and also the cccDNA targeting agents and targeting integrants. Those would be revolutionary, because if those actually work, then you're actually achieving a sterilizing cure of Hep B. So that would be a big step forward. But we will all look forward to the developments. But right now, what we have is our nukes.
Yeah.
And second question is on S negative patients. So I think I just threw it out for everyone to think about, because S negative, we usually don't treat them, or we usually stop our treatment. But if the patient's already on nukes, should we continue our nukes as a goal to try to suppress the residue replication? Because, for example, in our study, I probably didn't show it in detail in the slides, but in the S negative or S seroclonus patients, actually all of them still have intrahepatic HBV DNA detectable. So they do still have some activity. So is it possible that our nukes can actually suppress that activity to reduce the de novo integration? So that would be something that we can think about. Yeah. I mean, obviously, you will need a clinical study to actually support like a routine, a change in clinical practice to actually do that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. That was quite an active discussion. So we are actually on time. So we should move on. Yeah, but I'd like all of you to know that we have a judge here, Professor Kim from the Stanford University, who is actually on his duty to be the judge for this, for this session, for your presentation, for our, moderator. So yeah, please.
I'm only the chief judge, and we have two judges up front as well. Just to show you that I'm equal opportunity aggressive questioner, I'm going to ask, what is your hypothesis for the study?
You mean the hypothesis for or rationale for?
Yes.
Yes, the rationale was to use an advanced technique, the NGS, to get a very detailed profiling of the integration. So when we started off, we know that the integration profiling is not very well defined. And the previous studies, they use some of the PCR techniques, which are not very good, not very sensitive. So we think that we use this way, a very well characterized and neurobioinformatics technique to actually get a good profiling, and then to see what it brings out in terms of treatment indication, etc. So that is the initial goal of our study.
So you're saying is this the first study to NGS?
Definitely not, but at the same time, the key strengths of our study is, one, I think HBsAg negative patients are quite difficult to find with biopsies, and also some of the groups, like for example E positive chronic hepatitis, you really don't have many patients with samples, and a lot of these samples we use some of the archive samples, and I think in the modern era when everything is driven by non-invasive testing, it would be incredibly difficult to repeat something like this. So we really dug out everything, used our archive samples to actually get everything together. Yeah.
So I'm just being overly critical, but people, if you wrote a grant to describe the study, or even when you try to publish this paper, this data, people will say this is descriptive data. That's you use a convenient sample to try to describe what you have. Maybe a little bit forced, but a hypothesis that you can state is to compare the profile of people who are surface antigen negative versus who's positive, or something like that. That would be a legitimate question for you to try to answer. But then it leads to the next question. If you're making that comparison, what is the representative surface antigen positive patients, right? So, so the next level might be if you're in your description, E positive, what's it? Surface antigen level high 2, the group that had a higher integration events.
You mean the hepatitis patients or first infection patients?
Yeah, right? E positive patients that had more integration than E negative patients, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm just articulating the stream of questions that will come up, and that is, these samples are limited by the fact that these patients had reason to have liver biopsies, right? So the E positive patients, they probably are not representative of the universe of E positive patients that you may think about. So immune tolerant individuals who are a big chunk of E positive patients, are they represented? Do they have the same integration event? Younger immune tolerant patients versus, the biopsy cohorts tend to be enriched with patients who are older and they're still E positive, and we don't know what to do. We don't know how to treat these patients. And then we end up doing biopsies. And if your sample is enriched with those individuals, then they may not be representative of all E positive patients or something like that. So I'm trying to make the point out of the morning's discussion about selection bias and how do you draw causality conclusions based on this data. So I want to see your reaction to those questions.
Yeah, thank you.
Professor Yuan, do you want to make any comments? Because, the boss is here.
Sorry, I came late. In fact, all the comments are very valid, but we are facing with a very difficult, recruitment for taking out the biopsy to do this analysis. And one thing is, Lynn pointed out that we all know that E negative patients, they have more integration. But the thing is, in this study, we find E positive patients have more integration. I would like to rephrase the sentence of E negative patients. They have a relatively higher proportion of integration compared to E positive. But the fact is, E positive patients have an absolute higher number of integrations than E negative. The thing that we see now is E negative patients, most of the surface antigens come from the integrated DNA. The proportion of integration among E negative is high. But then the absolute number or absolute event of integrations in this particular study, we find that it's higher in E positive, and it was postulated because of high replications, et cetera, et cetera. But Professor Kim, pointed out that we encountered selection bias because of small number of immunotolerance group. We only have 3, I think, immunotolerance patients. And why we get these 3? Because when they join the trial, we screen the patients. The screening, the ALT was actually quite low. That's why we reclassify as immunotolerance patients. So, I agree. Most of the immunotolerant patients are not reflected in this particular study. This is my comments.
Thank you very much for this
thank you.
insight information. We have lots of patients with S positive versus S negative. We may collaborate to do some study. Thank you very much. We really need to move on.
Thank you.
So, thank you. And also thank you for this discussion. Yeah, please.
Okay, let's move on to the last speaker. The third speaker is Dr. Aya Sugiyama from Japan. So please start.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. So I'm very happy to share our team's data to you. So today I'd like to talk about what percentage of the Japanese population has already been tested for HPV and HCV. This study is supported by Ministry of Health of Japan. So we have nothing to declare for this study. WHO has established indicators for the hepatitis elimination goal by 2030. So although among these indicators, the diagnosis rates for HBV and HCV were less than 5% as of 2015, but the goal is to achieve 90% in 2030. To achieve this, a nationwide hepatitis virus screening system is deemed necessary. While Japan has a comprehensive screening system, what percentage of the Japanese population has already been tested for HBV and HCV? What is the current situation in Japan towards the elimination goal? So this slide shows the national policy and countermeasures for viral hepatitis in Japan. The fight against viral hepatitis in Japan has been a long journey. HPV was discovered in the 1960s and HCV was discovered in 1989. And the Japanese Red Cross Society introduced screening of blood for transfusion soon after it became detectable to stop the transmission by transfusion. And in 1986, to prevent HPV mother-to-child transmission, screening of all pregnant women and administration of HPV vaccine and HPV-IZ to the newborns of positive pregnant women began nationwide. And in 2002, free hepatitis virus test for all residents over 40 years old was introduced nationwide. And in 2010, the Basic Act on hepatitis measures were enacted, establishing regional core hospital in every prefecture and promoting comprehensive hepatitis measures. So this slide shows the opportunities available to the Japanese population for hepatitis virus screening tests. In Japan, those who donated blood, were pregnant, or had surgery have undergone hepatitis virus screening. And all residents over 40 years old are offered testing since 2002. And some can get tested through private or workplace health checkups. So with the various opportunities provided for hepatitis virus screening tests for the Japanese population, what percentage of the individuals have actually undergone testing so far? So to determine the coverage of hepatitis virus testing, we conducted a nationwide survey 3 times in 2011, 17, and 20. The subject was 2-stage random sampling stratified by population composition ratio by gender and age in region municipality from basic resident register throughout Japan. The number of subjects for first survey in 2011 was 74,000 people, and the second survey in 2017 was 30,000 people, and third survey in 2020 was 20,000 people. Anonymous self-administered questionnaires regarding experiences with hepatitis virus testing were sent to the subject by post. Based on the results of the questionnaire survey, we classified the subject into 3 categories: recognized tested, unrecognized tested, and unscreened. So recognized tested means those who answer to the question, have you ever taken hepatitis virus test? Yes, and answered the type of test received. These people are categorized as recognized tested, and those who answered the same question, no or I don't know, but can be considered to have been tested based on their history of blood donation, pregnancy, and surgery, classified as unrecognized tested. And those who answered this question, no or I don't know, and no history of blood donation, pregnancy, or surgery, are classified as unscreened. So this is the results of our nationwide survey in 2011, 17, and 20, HBV and HCV test coverage in general population in Japan. So as I told you, the random sampling data, as for 2011, 23,000 people responded. And among them, the recognized testing rates for HBV and HCV were both 70.6%. And when included the unrecognized, HBV coverage was 57.5% and for HCV 47.9%. And this percentage increased in 2017 as 71% for HBV and 61% for HCV. This indicates the success of comprehensive hepatitis control efforts, including proactive testing opportunities, awareness campaigns, and so on. But however, in 2020, the testing rates remained unchanged from those in 2017. Why did this occur? So for this point, we think that some people may have actually taken the screening test but could be categorized as unscreened because they forgot about their testing history. So among this group, the people who answered no or no to the question, have you ever taken a hepatitis virus test? There is a possibility that some people have actually taken tests but have forgotten about it. So we conducted additional research in 2022 to find out how many people forget their test history. In this survey, in 8 cities in Hiroshima, questionnaires were mailed to all 1,900 residents who received hepatitis virus screening tests. So we got to the list of those who received the test. And while all these individuals were known to have undergone testing, they were asked if they had been tested before or not. And among 1,900 people, 993 people responded to our question, and among them, so more than half, 52.4% of them answered, no, I have never been tested. So it means that 52.4% had forgotten about their experience of the test. So even among those who underwent testing 1 to 2 years ago, about 30% of categorized as unscreened due to forgetting their testing history without history of blood donation and pregnancy or surgery. So we adjusted the test coverage results in nationwide survey in 2020 by using the percentage of residents who forget about experience of test. So HPV test coverage was 85.5%, and HCV test coverage was 76.4%. So in conclusion, in Japan, so the WHO elimination goal of over 90% of infected individuals getting tested is likely almost achieved in Japan. The challenge for the future is to achieve the treatment coverage in which more than 80% of those who tested positive and are eligible for treatment are linked to care, linked to treatment. In our Ministry of Health research team, we estimated that the percentage of patients linked to treatment ranges from 44% to 72%. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sugiyama. So, are there any comments or questions from audience? So, the testing rate was relatively high than I expected. What should we do further to raise the percentage more?
More. Because, thank you for your question. So I think that test opportunity is provided to maybe enough opportunity for Japanese people, but the problem is I saw that most of them forget about their testing, and very because I chose the second survey to know how much people forget about it. That questionnaire survey is, we send it only those who tested already, and we know that results of the test, but very few people is a positive results, but they did not realize they are positive results. So I think the challenge is that kind of people have to be support them is more.
Yeah. Okay. So, is there any comment or question?
So maybe I ask one simple question. Do you have the national program now, like regularly from the government to do the national survey or screening of the S antigen? And after that, for the positive patients, do they need to come by themselves, or you have a government-supported program to call them for their regular, examination or even further treatment? Do you have this kind of policy?
Of course, the Japanese government recommend to get further examination, and they prepared some subsidy for the further testing for the positive person.
Okay, thank you.
Please.
Thank you for the presentation. The response rate to the survey of over 50%.
For the nationwide survey?
For the Hiroshima survey.
Hiroshima survey, yeah, it's almost 50%.
That is amazing.
Amazing.
Yes. You just sent letters to the community residents asking questions, then they mailed back the survey.
Yes, that's right.
Almost 60% of the time. Was that one mailing? I mean, that's so extraordinarily high. So if you can share your wisdom with the rest of the audience, how you do survey in the community to get such high response rate? That was my first question.
Okay, thank you for your question. And for this survey, we sent the letter for the residents, and we explained why we need this data. So please help us, please contribute this survey. We make mail, and the first we send them. And once we send the letter with questionnaire, and we send again the postcard to them, please help, please answer our question. And then some people additionally replied to us, and we got this kind of response rate.
That's really high. And that sort of leads to the next question. I'm so ignorant about the policy in Japan. Hepatitis B is quite uncommon in Japan in general. And I assume that people who are born in the 1980s and thereafter have all been vaccinated. So I don't know what the prevalence of hepatitis B in people under 30, 40. I assume that is very, very low. Whereas people who are older, there may be some hepatitis B. So, if I was a country trying to decide where to spend my money, screening for hepatitis B in a very, very low prevalence population may not be high on my list. So the results, when you see the response and also test results, how does the age-specific response and then test results, if you have any test results, show in terms of age distribution for hepatitis B and hepatitis C?
Thank you for your question. Yeah, as you told you that younger generations positivity is very, very low, 0.1%. And the elderly people, older than 6 years old, maybe it's, but it's still lower than 1%. And the very old people is more than 1%. But yeah, as you told that, because this resident screening system, we continued from 2002, and so for now we still continued this system. But year by year, the positive rate becoming lower. And in these days, 0.1%. And so if we think about the cost-effective side, it's not enough, maybe.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. So we have to close this session. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very good. Yeah, maybe they can calculate the whole score.
Ah, no, no need.
Okay.
I will do that.
It's the last session, right? workshop by APASL and AASLD. So we have a mixed topic for this afternoon. And I'd like to welcome the first speaker for this session, Dr. Tamayoka, who will be talking about the present and future hopes for laparoscopic hepatectomy education using a visual assistance of AI. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman. It's a great honor to be able to speak to you today. So today I'd like to talk about our research for education using a visual assistant AI, especially for laparoscopic liver dissection. We have no COI. Here's today's agenda. I'm going to divide my presentation into main three parts. In the first part, I'd like to say something about the background of this research. Laparoscopic hepatectomy requires accurate visualization and appropriate handling of hepatic veins and glycerol pedicle, and that is suddenly appear during liver dissection. Then we developed a new AI for laparoscopic hepatectomy. In addition, there is a serious problem of decreasing number of surgeons in Japan, so we surgeons are making efforts to convey the appeal of surgery. In the second part, I'm going to explain our research. We use the AI for medical education, especially for observation surgery medical students practice. We aim to convey the appeal of surgery. In the last part, I state our hopes for the future. So in the first section, I'm going to talk about the background of this research. The components of surgical procedure are shown on the left on the figure. Surgery proceeds by seeing with the eyes and recognizing, judging with mind, and moving hands. Visual information is especially important in laparoscopic surgery where the tactile sensation is absent. Here are some innovations. Innovations have included preoperative simulations and ICG fluorescent imaging and laparoscopic or robotic surgery. However, there have not been many technologies that complements the recognition and decision-making parts. Therefore, we have applied the AI technologies of Japanese company Anauto to build a visual assistant AI for the laparoscopic hepatectomy. This slide shows about complications. The left side of the slide shows the complication factors. The factors related to recognitions are lack of recognition, lack of attention, and memory lapse, each closely related to the other. The figure on the right shows complication and mortality rate in Japan. It shows that mortality rate in liver surgery is decreasing while the complication rate is increasing, despite technological innovations. Another problem is serious decline in the number of surgeons in Japan. For a long time in our country, surgeons have been known as 3K, which means hard, dirty, and dangerous. As the figure shows, the numbers of the surgeons is decreasing year by year. We must remove the 3K image by communicating the appeal of surgery through medical education. In a surgical observation scene, medical students are unable to fully understand the anatomy and the surgical procedures, so surgeons think like this. But education is tend to be one way from the surgeon to the students. So we introduce AI into the surgical observation and medical education in the hope that AI would solve this dilemma. In this section, I'd like to focus on the research. Here's an AI system. Introducing Eureka, a visual assistant AI for laparoscopic surgery developed by Anauto. Eureka automatically recognizing connective tissues and ureter or pancreas like this. And then we apply this technology to construct an automatic recognition system for intrahepatic tubular structure and LH. Here, I will show the results. On the left is the original video, and the right is AI prediction video. You can see here tubular structure in the liver, and AI can detect the hepatic vein and Grissom pedicle respectively and colorize them. Vein in blue and the Grissom pedicles are green. This can be real time and displayed and monitor with ICG fluorescent imaging. AI can also detect the ureter like this, and the connective tissues between organs are in blue, and the pancreas is like this in white. So the primary objective of the study is implement the visual aid recognition AI system in LH to improve students' understanding of anatomy and surgical process during surgical observation. I will show the method. First, we ask medical students to evaluate the usefulness of the constructed AI with respect to the tubular structure recognition. And the other evaluation, we evaluate the impact of AI on recognitions in 70 medical students in a surgical education class. In step 1, everyone is shown in LH video, and in step 2, we divided them into AI and non-AI groups. AI group was shown the AI analysis video of a different scene, and the non-AI group was shown the original video. And then in step 3, 40 questions were prepared, and all participants were asked to answer them. Not only the intrahepatic tubular structure, but also the ureter, pancreas, and the connective tissues. The questionnaire is like this. Question is simple. Please point out the tubular structure, and I scored all answers, 0 or 1. Also, connective tissues and pancreas were evaluated in similar methods. I will show the results. Regarding to the usefulness score, it was 1.86 of 2. These results suggest the AI is useful for medical students' recognition of structures. Next, we show their responses. They answer like this, and in black arrows, and pancreas and connective tissues like this. Finally, the scores were compared between two groups. Scores of the liver were significantly higher in the AI groups. Similarly, high values were obtained for the other structures in AI group. In the last section, I'd like to talk about our vision and hopes for the future. In the field of surgical medical education, especially in surgical observation, there was a gap between the thoughts of surgeons and students. There is a big dilemma. Surgeons, however, do not have enough time to explain in real time. So we expect AI system may solve this dilemma. This is an actual educational scene of surgical observation using AI. This is a surgical monitor and a simulation monitor. This is AI monitor, and me and the students. Students are very curious to see the AI screen with glowing and shiny organs. It also has the advantage to being easy to explain because the organs or the structures are glowed. I'd like to emphasize that it has very good bridge in medical education. The visual aid of AI helps students understanding anatomical structures. Students can understand the surgery based on the anatomical theory. AI can complement what surgeons cannot explain directly AI can make the structure sparkle and shiny and never gets boring. We expect that AI to have effect of driving their curiosity. It would be great if they could be inspired to become interested in surgery and furthermore aspire to become surgeons in the future. I'd like to finish my presentation by making conclusion. We expect that students might develop an interest in and understanding surgery by viewing surgeries in which this AI colorize and display structures. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tamioka. Any questions from the floor? If not, can I ask you a question? Yeah, you have shown very nicely that this can increase the visual recognition, and that is your focus is mainly on education. But I was just wondering, you highlighted the increased liver-related mortality in LH. Would you think that this would also help to, I mean, was there shown the complication or the liver-related mortality is related to the lack of recognition?
Yeah, thank you for comments and question. Actually, in Japan, mortality rate is decreasing, but however, the complication rate is increasing. So I don't know what is the main reason, but one reason is thought to be major liver resections or the aggressive liver resection is increasing in Japan. That's because of the technologies or the innovations. So in that cases, AI helps that surgeons recognitions avoid because they are helps to visual aid to recognize main or important hepatic veins or Grissom pedicles, and we surgeons recognize them. Mm-hmm. So we appropriate treatment. So complication rate is decreasing, I think.
Okay. Also, I was just wondering, I mean, from the residents' perspective, so this is actually more of an unsupervised learning. It's just mainly on the visual recognition. Could you enhance it further by any other ways, methods with the supervised learning method that you can incorporate?
Thank you. Is it about AI?
Yes.
AI is deep learning.
Yep.
Yeah, and we annotation. We have annotation for each frames and static frames.
So it is included, incorporated.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Dr. Kim?
In your research part,
yes,
students were given images with AI-assisted identification of structures. Mm-hmm. And the other set was without demarcation?
Yep. Side is the original.
So if there is a color painted on the picture, that means there is something there. So the AI painted color to vascular or tubular structure.
Yes.
So was the research asking whether that is helpful compared to without that marking?
Yes, we use main surgical monitor, and in near future we use this AI in a clinical use. So beside the main monitor and AI monitor, so we can both see both.
I understand that, but the research part, when students were asked, is this good? The good part is AI marking of vascular structure. The comparison group is just a native picture.
Yes, but later I will show I showed the AI prediction video also, non-AI groups.
I was going to ask whether a more comparable study design, maybe AI painting green, color to bile duct or hepatic vein, whatever it may be, and another picture that puts color in random parts of the liver, and more of a destruction or as a control, and ask students what is the right answer, what is the structure that this color points to, or something like that. It feels like if one picture has color-coded suggestion of an important structure and the other picture has no color on it, then I think it's natural for people to say, oh yeah, this is helpful. That's not a very interesting research question. So I'm just asking what was the structure of the comparison that was given to the students.
Yes.
Maybe we'll move on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions? Okay. And we can
Okay, thank you for your presentation. Yeah. Okay, I'm Dr. Lesmana. So we move to the second presentation. So about optimizing a hepatitis C screening model for general population using easily accessible demographic data will be presented by Dr. Chi Zhang. Yeah,
Oh, yes.
please.
Thank you. Dear Professor, and hello everyone. My name is Zhang Chi from Peking University First Hospital, Beijing, China. The topic I will talk about today is optimizing a hepatitis C screening model for general population using easily accessible demographic data. We have nothing to declare for this study. As we all know, HCV infection remains to be a major public health problem worldwide, especially in Western Pacific. The latest estimates showed that there were about 58 million HCV infection individuals worldwide, including about 10 million in the Western Pacific. The incidence of HCV every year worldwide is about 1.5 million. And 287 for mobility. In the Western Pacific, there are about 230 mortality and 77 morbidity respectively for hepatitis C. For hepatitis C, the diagnosis coverage was only about 21% globally. Western Pacific was about 25% in the, this is global, this is Western Pacific. Only the Eastern Mid reaches the 2020 HCV diagnosis and treatment. This is the Eastern Mid region. One of the most dramatic achievements last few years was the development of DA treatment, which can cure more than 85% of HCV infection. But this simply 8 to 12 weeks oral cure is not reaching a significant outcome. So the White House proposed a national hepatitis C elimination program, including diagnosis, research, and patient care, etc. For the perspective, which although the guideline recommended we should screening all of the HCV patients in all adults. However, from a practical perspective, we should screening the high-risk population first, and then screening the middle to low-risk populations.
we designed this study. We use data from the U.S. population survey to identify high-risk hepatitis C patients and provide a reference for hepatitis C in Asia Pacific. The enhanced data. This is the website of this. Has begun in the 1916 and has been released every 2 years since 1999, and every 2 years gave a cycle. Every year, more than 5,000 patients. Our study included from 11 cycles from 1999 to 2020. A total of 117,000 patients were screened, and 83,000 patients were ultimately included, including demographic data, biochemical tests, and blood tests, and other data included history of blood transfusion years, and HCV RNA and HCV genotype. We use machine learning method to construct screening for hepatitis C infection individuals. In step 1, we grouping 11 cycles into training cohort and testing cohort. This is step 1. This is step 2. In step 2, comparing the demographic and laboratory tests between HCV positive and negative was compared. In step 3, we use logistic regression to calculate the odds ratio of 4 demographic in our study with sex, races, blood transfusion history, and birth of year. In step 5, we comparing the AUC of machine learning models, and in step 6, we evaluated the diagnostic performances of our models. This is the demographic information between the HCV, between the anti-HCV negative and anti-HCV positive. We can see HCV positive individuals are older. Mean age older about. This is a mean age older about 20 years. There are also more HCV positive males. We can see the males domain in HCV positive patients, and perhaps the black people may be more suffer than white peoples. Also, the total study population, only about 8.8 person had a history of blood transfusion, and more than half of them received blood transfusion before 1991. About 1/4 of HCV positive individuals has a history of blood transfusion, about 25%. As we expected, HCV positive individuals have a higher blood biochemical such as ALT and AST, and lower of platelets and airborne. Yes. Next, we evaluated the value of the four demographic in the diagnosis of hepatitis C, including sex, races, blood transfusion, and birth of year. As we can see in the multivariable analysis, males are more likely suffer in HCV, and black people may be easily suffered. For the blood transfusion, we can see it's about 1.1 times higher than without blood transfusion. For the birth year, which is the most we can see in the birth of 1917 and before had about 8 times higher than after the 1971 because for the birth year, this seems reasonable because as blood transfusion screening for HCV began around 19 1991, and people born after 1917 were less than 20 years old, with a lower probability of leading blood transfusion. We use the 4 demographic indicators as mentioned above to construct 9 machine learning models in training and validation cohorts. As we can see in the XGBoost model, the AUC and whether in the training set and validation set, they are about 0.885. Finally, we further evaluated the differences. This is the performances of XGBoost. As we can see, whether in the training cohort and validation cohort and testing cohort, they are more than 0.8. This is a calibration plot, and this is a DCA curve. Finally, we further evaluated the performances of HCV. This is HCV, not HVC. We made a mistake. RNA positive or negative. The result of HCV positive and negative was similar to the HCV antibodies. HCV positive patients are older and have a higher proportion of males and have higher liver biochemical indicators such as ALT. Our study also have several limitations because this is from the United States and may be not applicable for other countries. But apart from races, the other 3 indicators are common for hepatitis C. So we only slightly modified this the parameter. For the second, our models could miss about 10% of HCV infection, and the third misjudgment about 1/3 anti-HCV positive, but HCV RNA negative, which mean not to lead a DA treatment. This is our conclusion. To predict HCV infection in general population, only 4 easily obtained demographic features are needed, including sex, races, blood transfusion, and birth of year. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, Dr. Chi, you mentioned about the data, your study result, that you found more older patients and also
in older, yes.
Yeah, and also with history of blood transfusion.
Yes,
mostly,
blood
yeah.
transfusion.
So, have you considered regarding that possible, let's say, like a patient who has a history like drug
yes,
history?
yes.
So, and then how it can incorporate to your study results regarding the age and for prediction? Did you?
Okay. For the HCV high-risk population, as we mentioned in the general population, but in PIWD, which means drug use people, or in the PRISM, they are the high risk of HCV sufferers. So we want to combine our model with for the general population, and we may need to screen all of the PIWD populations and the people who in PRISM, but the PIW patients may be lot they may be lot to tell off us because it's their secret. Yes.
Any questions? comment?
What's your next step?
I want to use this. Perhaps we may need to, if we can choose a city or a province in China to test the performances of this model. We want to do this, but it may be hard because the testing of HCV antibody may be cheap, but the testing for HCV RNA may be with higher prices. However, for the HCV screening, we recently a recent guideline proposal one step, which means test and treatment, not first test and then treatment. Because if we test a patient with HCV antibody or HCV RNA positive, if we don't give them the DA treatment, then we may lost the visit of them. Yes, the purpose of our study may be in vain because the purpose is to give them treatment rather than screening. Yes, screening is the first. Okay.
Is the current policy in China risk-based test for hepatitis C or everybody universal?
If the blood transfusion, they need to test everybody, but not the general population. So our motto is very performances because we don't to have we didn't to get the blood of their patients. And we may find the high-risk population rather than their blood. Okay.
Yeah, I think I'm going to make the same comment as I did earlier. It's not the AUROC that's important,
yes.
But at what level of the risk do you want to draw the line? So if your model works in China, right, you can come up with a threshold of the score. If your score is higher than this level, then we recommend you to be tested.
Tested, yes.
No score is perfect, right?
Oh, yeah.
There is no score you can give.
Yes, we don't have this score for the universal. So perhaps in every province to give our score to.
What I meant was that no matter what level you choose, you will have people that you miss. Then you will have a lot of people that are negative.
Yes, perhaps they are negative, but for the goal of elimination hepatitis C, before 2013, which is set in WHO. Yes, we perhaps needed to do this, even though the negative the negative percentage is higher. Yes. It's only about in China. It's only about 8.8 perhaps.
What I'm suggesting is your next step is to find a model and propose a cutoff for screening.
Oh yeah.
And then be able to test it and be able to say, if you're above the score, then you have such and such % of being positive. And that's why you need to be tested. If you're below the score in China, in a given province, the prevalence is so low that you don't need to be tested, right?
Yes, it's about less than, let me see, it's about 5% in general population for HCV RNA, for HCV antibody positive, not HCV RNA positive.
But you're proposing a score to stratify people, high risk, low risk.
Yes, high risk, yes.
Right. So where you draw the line will define.
We may in one province to find the best cutoff, and then to other province, and then to generalize it. Maybe, but it's.
So I'm encouraging you to not to stop at a descriptive study and go to the next level.
Yes.
And be useful for policy making.
Thank you. Oh, okay.
If no other question, thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. Okay. So the next presentation is on bacterial vesicle cargoes induces systemic inflammation and hepatic injury in autoimmune hepatitis, and it will be presented by Dr. Swati Tangaria from India.
A very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I'd like to thank APASL committee to give me this opportunity to present my work, which entitles as Bacterial Vesicles Cargo Induces Systemic Inflammation and Hepatic Injury in Autoimmune Hepatitis. For the presentation, I have nothing to disclose. So, as we all know that autoimmune hepatitis is a self-perpetuating, non-resolving hepatic inflammation of unknown etiology. And if it's remained untreated, it can progress to cirrhosis, liver failure, and ultimately to the death. AIH is characterized by the presence of periportal hepatitis, autoimmune antibodies, elevation of serum globulins, and continuous hepatocellular inflammation and necrosis. So the diagnosis of AIH involves two criteria. One is the clinical criteria, where the demographics, biochemical parameters, and histology has been investigated. If the diagnosis remain unclear, a scoring criteria must be required. So the factors which affect the impact the autoimmune hepatitis are the infection with the viruses, intake of drugs, and herbal xenobiotics, gut dysbiosis. These factors, they comes as an environmental trigger, whereas the HLA epitopes and the epigenetic factors like specific miRNAs and demethylation sites, they are considered as a genetic predisposition factors. Similarly, the extracellular vesicles and the molecular mimicry are also considered. In recent studies, many recent studies have shown there is a perpetual immune response where both the innate cells and the adaptive innate immunity and the adaptive immunity, where the B cells produces autoantibodies which attacks the hepatocytes and cause hepatocyte damage. Recently, it has been revealed there is an alteration of gut microbiome and dysbiosis in AIH patients. So this change in gut microbiome signature pulled our attention toward these cellular communicators. These are the bacterial vesicles which are released by all type of bacteria, and they varied in size ranges. In human, they are associated with the virulence in the export of cellular metabolites and in the cell-to-cell communication. So based on this study, we hypothesized that bacterial vesiculosomes is altered in AIH, which may interact with the host immune system and hepatocytes and may influence the disease severity. So now coming to the results, for the present study, we recruited 75 treatment-naive AIH patients and 7 PBC patients, and we compared with the healthy volunteers, 30 healthy volunteers. The plasma and stool was collected, and the bacterial vesicles were isolated using density-based gradient ultracentrifugation method. After the isolation, bacterial vesicles were characterized using Western blot, transmission electron microscopy, and nanoparticle tracking assay. Further, their origin or the source was analyzed using 16S RNA sequencing, and the protein cargoes were analyzed through the proteomics. We also looked for the virulence factor into it using the virulence factor database available and molecular mimicry through MIPrep database. Lastly, we did the adaptive transfer of bacterial vesicles into the C57BL6 mice. The patients which were recruited in the study were the patients with type 1 AIH having AIH score more than 7. Patients were treatment naive, histologically proven in between the age group of 18 to 75, whereas the patients having any kind of co-infection with hepatotropic viruses, receiving any immunosuppressive therapy or underwent liver transplant were excluded. And the pregnant female and heavy alcohol intake patients were also excluded from the study. This is the baseline characteristics of the patients, and we observed that there are 70% of the patients which were recruited under the AIH category were the female, having 49% positivity. For the ANA and 33 were positive for the asthma autoantibody. After the isolation, the bacterial vesicle purity was analyzed using OMPA, which is a marker for bacterial vesicles, and we could see that the fraction number 1 to 9 contained the fractions for the bacterial vesicles, and after which they were further analyzed using TEM and NTA. So through that TEM analysis, we were able to see that there was a varied size range of bacterial vesicles present in the plasma and the stool samples among the group. Next, we looked for the size and concentration through the nanoparticle tracking assay, and we found that the high number of bacterial vesicles were present in AIH patients, both in plasma as well as in the stool, compared to the healthy individuals and the PBC patients. Next, we broadly characterize or broadly trying to identify the origin of bacterial vesicles based on the gram-positive and gram-negative bacteria using ELISA for the LPS and LTA, and we found that the high number of bacterial vesicles, significantly high number of bacterial vesicles were present in AIH associated with the gram-negative and gram-positive bacteria. Next, we clinically correlated the bacterial vesicles with the disease severity, and when we found that the LPS positive bacterial vesicles were clinically directly correlated with the liver transaminase level and with the hepatic activity index. Next, the origin of bacterial vesicles through the 16S RNA sequencing, and based on the beta diversity, we were able to clearly distinguish see the distinct segregation of circulating bacterial vesicles found in AIH, whereas in the stool sample, the population was overlapping. At the phylum level, we found the proteobacteria and actinobacter were the most abundant vesicles present in the present among the group, whereas the genus level, it was the Pseudomonas, which is already known in literature to be associated to be carrying with the associated with the virulence factor, with its virulence factor, and followed by the Staphylococcus. Interestingly, when we looked at the species level, we found that the Archobacter was the species which was exclusively present in AIH plasma, and it is known to cause the epithelial barrier dysfunctions. Next, we looked at their protein cargo, and we found that the AIH plasma bacterial vesicles were completely segregated from the healthy plasma or healthy stool bacterial vesicles. When we looked at the differential enrichment of protein in AIH, we found that the AIH plasma vesicles were mostly the proteins which we found in the AIH plasma bacterial vesicles were mostly were the immunoglobulins or the apolipo1, which are related to the immune response. And similar kind of result we found in the AIH stool BVs also, where the immunoglobulins were the most abundant one. Next, when we compared with the PBC plasma, it was the more of the structural protein, but in the PBC stool, again it was the immunoglobulin proteins. Next, we looked for the molecular mimicry with the bacterial vesicles. As we know that gut microbiome is a rich source of antigens, which has the potential for cross-reactivity, and the activation of T and B cells by commensal bacteria and that of a cell epitope may increase the risk of autoimmune hepatitis. Still, the epitope mimicry as a potential cause of autoimmune diseases are still unknown. So we try to identify the bacterial vesicles carrying the epitope mimicry in AH plasma using MIPEP database, and that mimicry peptide was identified based on their molecular weight, the number of residues it is carrying, its hydrophobicity, charge, polarity, and number of the homologous sequences it has. So we found 5 virulence factor which were having the epitope mimicry in AIH plasma, and out of which the methyl transferase, the virulence factor of methyl transferase family belonging to the E. coli, which mimics with the host pyruvate dehydrogenase complex subunit we found, and it is already known in the PBC disease. Lastly, we wanted to determine the bacterial vesicles, the role of bacterial vesicles in inducing AIH-like condition in wild-type mice. For that, we did the intravenous adaptive transfer of BVs isolated from the plasma into the wild-type mice after determining its dose and time, and we compared it with the OMV-treated mice, which are the commercially available bacterial vesicles, the cornea, and with the healthy plasma isolated BVs. And we found that the adaptive transfer of AIH BVs shows significantly high level of liver transaminase level in mice, and when we looked at the histology level, interestingly, we found that the AIH BVs were able to cause the focal acute inflammation at the 12 hour, whereas the OMV treated mice as well as the healthy plasma treated, healthy BVs treated mice did not show any change. So to conclude our study, we found high level of bacterial vesicles which are present in autoimmune hepatitis in circulation and which are correlated with the disease severity. Proteobacteria and Actinobacter were the most abundant phyla in AIH, and at the species level, Archobacter is exclusively present in AIH, which is associated with the intestinal barrier disruptions. The AIH BV cargo contains proteins associated with immune response. We found 5 virulence factor which were found to have epitope mimicry, which helps in immune modulation and adhesions, and the E. coli virulence factor from the methyl transferase family mimics the host pyruvate dehydrogenase complex E2 subunit. So the adaptive transfer of AIH BVs shows a significant increase in liver transaminase levels and cause focal acute inflammation of hepatocyte. So I would like to conclude that the detection of these bacterial vesicles open a new vista for gut liver X studies. Lastly, I like to acknowledge my mentor, Dr. Sukruti Baveja and Professor Sivkumar Sareen for giving me the encouragement and guidance to complete this work. And I also like to mention my collaborators here for their kind support. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tangavarial. Major, I asked, why was the BBC group included again? Was the comparator mainly between AIH and the plasma healthy controls?
Yeah. Actually, autoimmune hepatitis, it has three subcategories also. One is the AIH, which is the more and which is major and more prevalent among the groups, followed by PBC and PSC. So during our study, we were able to find only the PBC groups. We were not, since in India, autoimmune hepatitis is not very common. It's kind of a rare disease. So we could not find PSC patients, but we were able to find 7 PBC patients.
Okay. Also, just wondering, you see, the main thing now that people are talking about, that if you think that this is actually related to the intestinal barrier, would symbiotics even think of playing a role if there is such a thing here?
Yeah. The main reason why we wanted to study the bacterial vesicle was because especially in autoimmune patients, there is a known studies where people says that there is a gut disease biases. Okay, But these bacteria, to have the gut dysbiosis, we need the epithelial barrier to be disrupted and everything. But the quality or the advantage of these bacterial vesicles are that they are the membrane vesicles. So they don't need any membrane to go from to intestine to into the circulation, since they are made up of membrane. So we wanted to study whether the gut dysbiosis or the alteration of gut microbiome is also can be reflected into the plasma.
Yes, we have a question, please.
Yeah, very nice talk. I noticed the size of the vehicle is from 20 to 400 nanometer. What do you think? What's the target of those vehicles? Which cell types is sensing those vehicles? What's the mechanism?
Okay. The sensing, see, they are made of the bacterial components, so mostly the TLR parts, which recognize the PAMS sequences, the immune cells are mostly the target. That's why these vesicles are mostly involved in immune regulation and immune stimulation.
So you think the vehicles is containing lots of TLR8 ligands?
Yes. Actually,
bacteria.
we do find in our study that these bacterial vesicles were carrying mostly they followed the TLR2 pathways. We found the expression of TLR2 more.
TLR2, not TLR8? Sorry.
No, we did not find, we found TLR4, but the TLR2 were had the more expression.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Ray?
It's very provocative data, and I don't know enough about the vesicles to really question the biological significance of it. But I kept wondering, so your hypothesis is that these vesicles cause autoimmune hepatitis.
They may interact, since they can interact with the immune cells and with the host cells, with the hepatocytes. They may are influencing the disease severity.
But depending on how severe the disease is, if the liver, for example, is fibrotic and changes the portal dynamic, then it may be the actual liver disease that alters permeability and microbiome community that result in this observation. So it could be backwards.
Yeah. Actually, it's the studies with the extracellular vesicles. As I told, they don't. They nothing. No barriers can stop them going. Back and forth. So whenever we talk about the bacterial vesicle, especially in case of the disease, it's always a two-way mechanism. Thank you.
Okay, no other questions. Now we can actually thank again to you and close the session. Thank you very much, everyone. Okay, come.
All right, let's go back to the room around 4:30. Room 5.